protecting what matters most is the mission that matters most. At Lockheed Martin, we know today's threats come from behind, above, and below, and we make sure those who serve stay ahead of them by connecting platforms necessary to dominate every domain across air, land, sea, space, and cyber, using technologies that protect in the same moment they detect. The mission is a safer, more secure world. Our promise is to help make it happen.
Welcome to the Space News Leading Women series. I'm Space News correspondent Debra Werner. Through this series, Space News is shining a spotlight on some extraordinary women at the helm of space programs and organizations. We're delving into their backgrounds, discussing their accomplishments, and highlighting ongoing work at prime contractors, startups, government agencies, and federally funded research and development centers. Women hold key leadership roles, and we'd like to introduce you to some of them. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Maria Demaree, Lockheed Martin National Security Space Vice President and General Manager. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Maria.
Nice to meet you too. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good.
So I'm very pleased that you're taking time to do this. I imagine there are a lot of people clamoring for a little of your time.
We're pretty busy.
And I was interested when I was looking at your bio, you've spent your entire career at Lockheed Martin. What made you stay there?
You know, it really, I have to say, I have been surrounded by the defense industry my entire life. My father was a Lockheed employee and retired from Lockheed. My husband, my brother, several of our kids are in this industry now. So it's something that we're very passionate about, I think, as a family. Part of the reason is when we were in fifth grade, we moved to Florida my dad was at Eglin Air Force Base delivering a system. And being surrounded by military families and seeing, you know, when people were deployed, what it was like to be part of friends of those families and the sacrifice that people make for us to have the freedoms we have in this nation was really impactful on me. So that really drove me to want to be a part of this industry, if you will, and to be a part of the missions that we serve. So I feel that, you know, what we do at Lockheed Martin from a mission perspective is incredibly important and very rewarding to be here doing. Along with that, I would tell you, you know, the 34-year part of it is just I've been given opportunities to continue to grow while I've been here. The people that work here are incredible. I really believe that there's nothing we can't do that we decide to do. They can do impossible things, it seems. We do really hard things, and we're very proud of that. And lastly, I would say really just the ethical values of this company. I've watched us over the 34 years, the decisions that we make, the ethics that we uphold without question. And so really, you know, mission, the people, the values, the ethical parts of this company are really what have kept me here for 34 years. And I can tell you when I came, I wasn't intending to be here for 34 years. It's truly just been an incredible journey for me.
And before you were there, you earned a bachelor's degree in computer science from Penn State and a master's in systems engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. Has that prepared you well for your work?
Absolutely, yes. I will say my Penn State experience, really rigorous, hands-on computer science major. It was challenging. It was difficult. It definitely prepared me for going into the software development workforce. But also, you know, when I was there, I became the president of the Computer Science Club, which was the Association for Computing Machinery. And that leadership led to other leadership opportunities at Penn State. And I became part of an organization called Lion Ambassadors, which was part of the Alumni Association, student alumni representatives. So anytime there were VIP guests or big events like homecoming, which of course at an institution like Penn State is a massive event, tours of the university, we organized and executed all of things like that. So for me, it wasn't just the technical education that I got there that was valuable to me, but also the leadership and learning how to collaborate and do large scale events, that really, I think, were very valuable to me. I became part then of General Electric Aerospace, which ultimately became Lockheed Martin down the road. And so Jack Welch was our CEO, and he was maniacal about leadership training. So I got into a leadership development program, was using my technical skills, but also getting to go to Crotonville and all the leadership training that came with a GE experience. And that really led me to look at system engineering. I was sitting with system engineers, listening to them talk about satellite systems and connecting ground stations to satellites to distributing data, and thinking about how to optimize those systems. And that was really something I had not had exposure to before, but was really interested in being a system engineer. So I was able to, through that leadership development program, go to the University of Pennsylvania, which was, I believe, the first system engineering program in the United States. It's very old, and get that training. So yes, those things really helped me, and I was well prepared for the work that we do. But I'll also tell you that we train people in the jobs that we need them to do when they get here. So a lot of it is just learning that engineering way of thinking and breaking down problems and thinking about how to solve at lower levels. And then we really train people when they get here how to do it on the tools and technologies that we work on. So, but I do think it was well prepared, and I'd do it all again if I could.
Great.
Yeah.
I've been reading your LinkedIn posts, and one of them was about a Lockheed Martin technology demonstration mission called Pony Express 2. What's important about Pony Express 2?
So Pony Express 2 is a great example of how we can showcase how space can enable JADC2, Joint All-Domain Command and Control. So it's really exciting for us for a lot of reasons. One, it's something that we are funding within Lockheed Martin, and we're trying to do what we like to say, show more, tell less. So we want to not just tell our customers we can do things, but show them we can do things. So this is a funded research and development activity where we're putting on orbit capability that will lower the risk. So we're showing our customers, that this is working capability, so the risk is lower on it, increasing what we call technical readiness level, or TRL. So we're increasing that by putting it on orbit, demonstrating it working, and then ultimately accelerating getting this to mission, right? So when we need to get these capabilities out to our service members, we can do it more quickly if we're able to demonstrate that it's already a working capability, and then we go propose it into a program or a future opportunity for a customer. So we're really excited about this. In a nutshell, it's 2 satellites that are demonstrating a number of capabilities that would enable JADC2 through a satellite, Joint All-Domain Command and Control, which is something that we're very passionate about at Lockheed Martin. And really, it's just bringing the strength of air, space, land, sea, and cyber all to the fight, right? So all the capabilities that we have across all platforms, enabling what we like to describe as sense, make sense, and act is a very simple way of thinking of JADC2. So understanding the environment you're in, making sense of the situation that you're observing, and then act. What action will you take to do with that? And getting that information out to the warfighter.
And that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, the unique challenges and opportunities you see in JADC2.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is that ability to see your entire environment. So as again, all the domains of air, space, land, sea, and cyber, and seeing them simultaneously, right? So a human can really only look at probably one of those domains at a time and kind of try to process, but the ability to use machines and networked sensors to get all the capabilities in the zone that you're in at the time that you're there and see what's available. And that will be evolving. It'll be changing constantly. So doing that at machine speed is really the opportunity of JADC2. The challenge is really that these systems weren't built to talk to each other, right? You can walk into Starbucks today and your cell phone connects to the Wi-Fi and you're really not even sure how it did that anymore, right? But it used to be manual. And so that's really the challenge, is these systems aren't able to just automatically connect and share information. So we right now have to either do that manually or connect sensor to sensor and do that very deliberately. So the challenge for the future is really, how do we create systems of the future that are open architectures, that use standards, that enable this more rapid capability? And then we put a C in front of JADC2 for combined, right? Where we're really pulling in our allies and our partners internationally. And so how do we also bring them into this capability? And that's, again, yet another challenge for making sure that those standards and open architectures can enable that.
Yes. In a recent interview, I heard you talk about Tantrum, an electronically steerable antenna on a Terran orbital bus. What should people know about Tantrum?
So this is another example of a funded internal research and development activity where, again, we're trying to show more, tell less, get that capability on orbit, which that one went up December 22nd. I know, because we had a lot of folks working over the Christmas holiday, getting us regular updates on how things were going, and we were super proud of that team. But this electronic steerable antenna is really important technology that we're able to demonstrate using a lot of commercial parts, so lower cost. We were able to build this capability in 24 months, which is pretty quickly for getting that onto orbit too. And so, it's just another example of us demonstrating to our capabilities to our customers, accelerating that timeline, increasing that readiness level, and lowering the risk, so that as we move forward with opportunities to use that capability, we've demonstrated that it will work.
Right. Is satellite autonomy important?
Yes, autonomy is really important because we want, as you think about constellations, particularly of very, very large constellations like we're starting to see a lot more of, autonomy enables users to not be tasking specific satellites, but rather tasking the constellation and letting the constellation determine what's the best satellite to do the requested activity. If you think about like Uber, right? Just tell me which car is the best car to come pick me up that has the right number of seats and the right qualifications, right? You give kind of a general need and then let it respond to you. And that's what autonomy will give us in these larger constellations that we're putting together. Autonomy will enable the system to determine who's best to execute the request and to make it happen, and to do it without a lot of manual intervention from people.
And is AI an important tool in that? It occurs to me, with your computer science background, you're a good person to talk to about that.
It's very important. AI is really where we take all the data that we have and train those models so that the autonomy can happen. So, we will take data, and we have all kinds of data here. If you, for example, just take satellite telemetry data, for example. And if you took all the data and you watched how sensors degrade over time, you could use AI to train it and say, okay, when you start to see the tank going like this, that means it has this much time left or this much capability left. And you may not be watching that as a human watching the system, but you could have your system learning from AI, knowing what those indicators are going to be, and then autonomously responding to that, or bringing it forward for you to consider if you want to take some kind of action around that. So yes, AI informs autonomy and then allows those things to allow the operator to be doing the more interesting work, the less mundane activities, really focusing on the mission as opposed to kind of doing the math and the manual labor that's required to sustain the systems.
Great. I want to turn to the workforce issues for a second. I noticed that you chair the Space Diversity and Inclusion Council. Is that for Lockheed Martin National Security Space?
So it was a council that I chaired for Lockheed Martin Space as a whole. So we have 3 lines of business within space. So National Security Space is one of the 3. So it was the bigger organization. Since then, I had moved on to even do at the corporate level the Executive Inclusion Council, which was really looking at corporate diversity and inclusion opportunities and initiatives. And so that was one that I served on with the executive vice presidents of the corporation. And we took inputs from our what we call business resource groups, which could be our African American group, our women's network, Asian network, that we have a variety, Milvet. So a number of these organizations that would bring forward accomplishments that they had had since last time they briefed, but also challenges that their team or their organization was uniquely experiencing, and what we could do as a corporation to help and assist. And the one thing I'd love to say about that, and the reason that I'm so passionate about being a part of these organizations, is we don't just talk about the challenges, we actually took action. So when they would bring forward a challenge that was unique to one of our BRGs, I watched us really, tackle those problems, try to find ways to solve them or assist in any way that we could. And I was really proud of the outputs of those opportunities.
And so why did you want to be involved in that?
For me, I think obviously being a woman, I've had my experiences, and just having the opportunity now that I'm in a role where I can actually influence these things and advocate for all people, not just women, but all people, and understanding that we need the workforce to be as diverse as it possibly can be. When we talk about doing things like going to Mars, we need a lot of different thinking, new critical thinking, people with different ideas. We need the diversity that we can get, but we need to have it in our workforce to be able to do it. And we need to be able to retain that workforce when we get them. So to me, it's a business imperative as much as it's the right thing to do. And so for me, it's something I'm very passionate about. I'm proud and privileged to be in a position where I can have a voice in those opportunities, and I feel that I need to do that.
I understand. Do you have advice for people entering the field who don't fit the white male engineer stereotype that a lot of people think of for aerospace?
I think there's a lot of women that I particularly mentor and talk, especially the more junior people, right? And I think just understanding that just simple things like sitting at the table when you're in a meeting, speaking when you're in a meeting, not being small. We don't benefit if you don't share your good ideas. And so I often see, particularly women, that will sit in the back row or sit off to the side. And, and now in my role that I'm in now, I invite them, hey, Debra, please come to the table. And I don't make a big deal out of it, but I just have them move in, right, whether they want to or not. But I think it's so important. We have a seat at the table, and we need to sit there, and we need to use our voice, and we need to speak and participate. And what people will find is once you start doing that, you'll start to do it more. So I think that the most important thing, and I learned this myself, I will tell you, at the very beginning of my career, I was not someone who was super comfortable to sit at the table or to share an idea. I wasn't sure if it was going to be well received. That wasn't because anybody was telling me not to. That was my own inner voices that I think as women we sometimes can have. So I'm always advocating for women to sit at the table, to speak. There's a book that I recommend called How Women Rise. If you've never seen that, I highly recommend it particularly to women. I think there probably are a lot of things in there that also minority people might be experiencing as well. But it's really about the things that we particularly do that can hold ourselves back, that just trying to be a perfectionist, ruminating too many times on something. There's a whole list of things. But I found it to be a helpful book, and I found it to be very useful for me to explain to others where there's things we can do to help ourselves.
Yeah, I heard an interesting conversation where when people put out the requirements for a job, if a woman doesn't fit every single, if she doesn't have 5 years of experience, she might have 4 or 3. She doesn't apply. Whereas in general, men with less would say, well, I could do that.
Absolutely. It's a Harvard Business Review. It's one of my favorite reviews. And it really comes down to women are often perfectionists. I mean, I'm making a huge generalization there, but we tend to want to be perfect and to try to do everything perfectly. And so the results of that study said that women, if they felt like they would interview and not get the job, that would be seen as a failure. And surely we shouldn't think of it that way, but that is something that we do that we need to let go of. Also, something that we talk about a lot at Lockheed Martin is growth mindset, which I love. And the idea is if I only have 6 of those criteria, but the other 4, do I think I could learn them? Could I grow and master those things? Of course, but I have to believe that. You have to believe that you have to be confident that you could do that. And men generally are able to think that way. Like, I'll go figure out how to get those 4 other things. And that's the excitement of going into a new role. If you had everything, it probably wouldn't be all that exciting to go into anyway. So we talk a lot about that here, about, that understanding that you don't have to have everything to be a good candidate for a role.
That's great. Okay. You've covered my questions. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
I think I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to be here today to represent, the men and women of national security space. I think that, I'm here because of the great work that they do. They truly are the people who provide the mission, who serve our service members and our intelligence community. And so we're proud of the work we do. I'm proud that we make our nation safer every day, and we're grateful for the freedoms that we have. And I think that, we appreciate what you do to carry that message forward. I think it's important for people to understand the importance of space in our way of life and in protecting our freedoms. And so thank you for the opportunity to do that.
Great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.